Hello my beautiful friends, my name is Liv or Olivia. If you are new here, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you some highly anticipated summer releases, but also some books coming out in fall and even some Christmas books. My favorite videos to film because I get to do all of this research on new books that are coming out and I get to share them with you guys and we can get excited for all the new books coming out that we have to look forward to. But these are also very long videos to film, so I highly recommend grabbing yourself a coffee or a tea. I've definitely got my little latte here because this is going to be a long chatty video. I think I have about 35 different books to share with you guys, and no, I will not be purchasing all of these, but I do have arcs of some, and a lot of them I feel like you guys will be really stoked for. So let's just go ahead and dive right into the books because we've got a lot to talk about. But if you guys are new here, I basically just divide all of the books into months. So we will be talking about July, August, and September. I will tell you what genre they are and the date they're coming out. So there are actually only 3 books coming out in July this month that I'm actually looking forward to. There's a ton in August and especially September because of course we're going into spooky season. But one of the books that I'm excited about for July that comes out on the 18th is Cutting Teeth by Chandler Baker. I have never actually read anything by this author before, but this is kind of why I want to figure out if this is going to be an author for me, because this is the most intriguing one that I have found by this author. Basically, it's kind of like a suburban mom dramatic horror story where the kids are craving blood. I think they're like vampires or something, but it sounds like a good comedy or like a good fun time. But also I love Suburban Hell. I really loved that book last year, and I feel like that's kind of giving me the same vibes of something that's horrific that's turned into something that's really funny, and I'm just really loving that contrast in books lately. I think it can be such an entertaining fun time, so I think this is going to be a really fun one to get into this fall. Coming out on July 25th, we have none other than House of Roots and Ruin, which is one of my most anticipated for the entire year. I love House of Salt and Sorrows so much. I'm planning to hopefully reread it before this book comes out. I'm not exactly sure the specifics of what this book is about, but I do know you want to read House of Salt and Sorrows first because it follows one of the sisters from the first story. So I highly recommend picking up the first one first because I feel like you'll just be able to appreciate the second one a lot more. Next we have Immortal Longings by Chloe Gong, which Chloe Gong is a huge name in the fantasy genre, especially in young adult, but this is actually her first adult fantasy novel, which I am very excited about, even though I've never read anything by this author. All I know about this one is it's a dystopian, and I have not read an amazing dystopian in forever. I think it's also possibly childhood friends to lovers, but I know it's heavily inspired by Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra, so I know it's gonna be bloody, but I know it's gonna be such an amazing time, and hopefully this will set me off to finally read more of Chloe's books. Starting us out in the month of August, coming out on August 1st is The Narrow by Kate Alice Marshall. If you guys have been here long enough, you know I love Kate Alice Marshall. She writes such spooky stories, but they're so incredibly good. And this one says a ghost haunting her boarding school uncovers a teen girl's best kept secrets. Need I say more? You have a boarding school, and it's creepy, and it's Kate Alice Marshall, and it's also young adult, and there's mystery elements to it. Like, obviously I'm gonna pick it up. The next book dropping in August is At the Coffee Shop of Curiosities, which right there, that title and even the cover, amazing. This is going to be absolutely amazing. I know it is more contemporary magical realism, which can kind of be a hit or miss for me, but I'm just going to read you a little bit about it because it sounds so incredible. Ava Dowling is on the run. After the sudden death of her fiance only a month before their wedding, she closes up her lonely apartment in Vermont to answer a want ad in Driftwood, Alabama, a town she's never heard of, to apply for a job she's never done. But the promised benefits far outweigh the cons, and being a live-in caretaker to a cranky old man in a beachside cottage is the perfect way to hide from the pain of her loss and the realities she doesn't want to face. Maggie Lane Brightwood hardly ever sits still. On the surface, she's a bundle of bright energy as she runs Magpies, Driftwood's coffee and curiosity shop. She spends her days matching people to what they were missing, whether that's the perfect coffee blend or a trinket they didn't know they needed. Keeping busy is the best way to distract herself from her strained relationship with her aging father and the guilt she feels in hiring a stranger to take care of him instead of doing it herself. Obviously, this sounds like Ava and Maggie are going to become really good friends, and I mean, a shop of curiosities where she matches things that you need. I'm just immediately sold and intrigued by just that alone, so I think this is going to be a really big hit. Coming up next, we have Looking Glass Sound by Catriona Ward, which I like to call her the queen of crazy horror because she psychologically will manipulate you so much while you're reading. You will be confused the entire time you're reading her books, but at the end realize she's a complete genius. This one I have no doubt is gonna probably be one of my new favorites from her because it has to do with this writer who I think moves to the coast, and he is struggling with seeing the difference between fiction and reality. So I feel like this is just gonna be an ode or a nod to authors and bookish people in general. So the theme itself I'm already really on board with, but I know she's just gonna completely take it to the next level, and I am so here for that. Next, we have Lisa Jewell's None of This Is True, and Lisa Jewell is a mystery thriller author I don't read a lot from, but every time I do, I just get so sucked into her characters and the way she creates her atmosphere. It's absolutely phenomenal, and I've heard this one is a lot of people's new favorite from her, so I'm extremely excited about that. Lisa Jewell returns with a new psychological thriller about a woman who finds herself the subject of her own popular true crime podcast. Celebrating her 45th birthday at her local pub, popular podcaster Alex Summers crosses paths with an unassuming woman called Josie Fair. Josie, it turns out, is also celebrating her 45th birthday. They are in fact birthday twins. A few days later, Alex and Josie bump into each other again, this time outside Alex's children's school. Josie has been listening to Alex's podcast and thinks she might be an interesting subject for her series. She tells Alex, on the cusp of great changes in her life. Josie's life appears to be strange and complicated, and although Alex finds her unsettling, she can't quite resist the temptation to keep making the podcast. Slowly, she starts to realize that Josie has been hiding some very dark secrets, and before she knows it, Josie has made her way into Alex's life and into her home. But as quickly as she arrived, Josie disappears. Only then does Alex discover that Josie has left a terrible and terrifying legacy in her wake. I feel like in typical Lisa Jewell fashion, you have these characters that you're trying to figure out how they're woven together, and I think it's just gonna be such a good book from her. Next, we have a book that definitely gives me big Finley Donovan vibes, is The Blonde Identity by Ali Carter. I know that this author is pretty popular. I think she's written young adult and middle grade books, but this is an adult contemporary kind of chick lit mystery. A fast-paced, hilarious road trip rom-com about a woman with amnesia who discovers she's the identical twin sister of a rogue spy and must team up with a rugged, grumpy operative to stay alive. So many buzzwords there. Hilarious, road trip, amnesia. I love the trope when people don't remember things and have lost their memory. And identical twin sister. I love a good sister dynamic. Say no more. I will be at the bookstore getting this one the day it comes out. Next, we have an adult fantasy by T. Kingfisher, which is Thornhedge, and I feel like this author comes out with so many books so fast. I don't know how she does it. but I absolutely fell in love with her when I read Nettle and Bone, and she tends to take your typical classic fairy tales and put a dark, horrific kind of twist on them, and that's exactly what this one is going to be, because it talks about a toad-shaped heroine, a gentle knight, and a mission gone completely sideways. So I'm just very curious where she's going to take this story. T. Kingfisher is definitely an auto-buy author for me at this point, and I'm so excited to get to this one. Next we have a spooky, cute little graphic novel, which I believe is middle grade, that is called Ghost Book by Remy Lay. I mean, this cover is absolutely terrifying, but when it said perfect for fans of Spirited Away, Coco, and Ghosts, immediately I was sold. It's a contemporary fantasy graphic novel about a girl who can see ghosts and befriends a boy who is stuck between the worlds of the living and the dead. I'm definitely keeping my eye on fall books at this point in the year to do a big fall book haul, and this is definitely going to be added to my list. We also have Sorceline number 2, which is also part of a graphic novel middle grade series. I read the first one last year and absolutely fell in love with the adorable creatures, the gorgeous artwork, and I think it's originally written in French if I'm not mistaken, so it has taken them a while to get the second one out to be translated in English, but it's finally coming out in August, and I could not be more excited. If you guys are just looking for another feel-good middle grade graphic novel to read any time of year, this one is absolutely perfect. Next we have I'm Not Done With You Yet by Jessie Q. Sutanto. At this point in time, she is now an auto-buy author for me, and I'm even more excited that this is an adult mystery thriller. I have no idea what it's about, but the cover is giving me kind of those Killing Eve dark vibes. It definitely looks a little bit more of a serious one as opposed to her other books, which I feel like are a little bit more humorous, like Vera Wong and Dial A for Aunties. Both of those books were 4 or 5 stars for me, so I'm really hoping that this one is going to live up to the hype. Next we have the queen of mystery thrillers, which is Alice Feeney's Good Bad Girl. I cannot wait for this one because I think there's like a sister dynamic in this, but I'm just so excited to have another Alice Feeney book, and this cover is so eye-catching. 20 years after a baby is stolen from a stroller, a woman is murdered in a care home. The two crimes are somehow linked, and a good bad girl may be the key to discovering the truth. Edith may have been tricked into a nursing home, but at 80 years young, she's planning her escape. Patience works there, cleaning messes and bonding with Edith, a kindred spirit. But Patience is lying to Edith about almost everything. Edith's own daughter, Cleo, won't speak to her, and someone new is about to knock on Cleo's door, and their intentions aren't good. With every reason to distrust each other, the women must solve a mystery with 3 suspects, 2 murders, and 1 victim. Next, we have another graphic novel that looks so stunning called The Infinity Particle by Wendy Zhu. I do not know how you pronounce her last name. I have read and I do own Tide Song, and it is adorable. It's also middle grade, but this one's young adult science fiction. It's about a young inventor falls for a life like AI and confronts questions of freedom and anatomy. I don't think I've ever read like a sci-fi-ish graphic novel before, but because it's this author that I already know I like so much, especially the art style, I think I could really get into this one. The last book I'm looking forward to that's coming out in August is My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine. This is a debut rom-com. It is about Cassie Greenberg, who is an artist, but of course it's a tough way to make a living. On the brink of eviction, she's desperate when she finds a too-good-to-be-true apartment in a beautiful Chicago neighborhood. Cassie knows that there has to be a catch. Only someone with a secret to hide would rent out a room for that price. Of course, her new roommate, Frederick J. Fitzwilliam, is far from normal. He sleeps all day, is out at night on business, and talks like he walked out of a Regency romance novel. He also leaves Cassie heart-melting notes around the apartment, cares about her art, and asks about her day. Obviously, the two of them end up striking up a romance, but the fact that she's a human, he's a vampire, I think is going to complicate things, but also make it entertaining and fun. I'm definitely getting more into the vampire vibe vibes lately, so I think this is going to be a really fun one. Starting us off with a bang in the month of September. On September 5th, Adrienne Young is coming out with a new book called The Unmaking of June Farrow. I was one of the few people that never got the chance to read Spells for Forgetting. I just didn't jump on it quick enough, but with the way that book blew up last year, I definitely want to jump on this one. It sounds incredible. In the small mountain town of Jasper, North Carolina, June Farrow is waiting for fate to find her. The Farrow women are known for their thriving flower farm and the mysterious curse that has plagued their family line. The whole town remembers the madness that led to Susanna Farrow's disappearance, leaving June to be raised by her grandmother and haunted by rumors. It's been a year since June started seeing and hearing things that weren't there. Faint wind chimes, a voice calling her name, and a mysterious door appearing out of nowhere. The signs of what June always knew was coming. But June is determined to end the curse once and for all, even if she must sacrifice finding love and having a family of her own. This is definitely giving me creepy fantasy vibes, kind of gothic and even practical magic a little bit as well, with some of the family curse dynamic type of theme situation happening. So I think this is going to be an amazing book for fall. Next we have a young adult romance but mystery, also urban fantasy that's supernatural with ghosts. Basically all of the best genres tied into one. It's called The Library of Shadows by Rachel Moore. I believe this is actually a debut, but it's about the third most haunted school in the country, where a student disappearance isn't uncommon and no one dares stay in the library after dark. I'm honestly just gonna leave it at that because clearly we all need to put it on our fall TBR. It sounds like it's going to be incredible. Apparently incredible is my word of the day, but there are so many good books, you guys, coming out, and I love a good young adult creepy book. I feel like I'm not super comfortable with full-out adult horror, at least not yet, and who doesn't love a haunted school or boarding school type situation? Next we have a Japanese translated work called What You Are Looking For Is in the Library. This is kind of a combination of The Midnight Library and Before the Coffee Gets Cold, and this one is about a girl who anyone who walks through her door of this library, she can actually sense exactly what they're looking for in life and provide just the perfect book recommendation they never knew that they needed to help them kind of guide them along on their way of life. That just sounds amazing to me, because anything that has books or a library that's in the theme of the story, I feel like I'm automatically gonna pick up. And I do want to get more into Asian literature this year. I feel like I say that every year, but I think this is just gonna be a really good one to pick up. The next book, so ironically coming out in September, is called The September House by Carissa Orlando. This is actually a debut adult horror mystery type of thriller story where a woman is determined to stay in her dream home even after it becomes a haunted nightmare. Every September, the walls drip blood, the ghosts of former inhabitants appear, and all of them are terrified of something that lurks in the basement. Most people would obviously run away, but Margaret, who bought the house, refuses to leave the house. But apparently, because this is Margaret's dream home, she refuses to leave the house. So I think her husband takes their daughter with him, and yeah, I just love a good creepy haunted house story. I love this cover, and I think it's gonna be a really solid debut from what I'm seeing so far with the reviews. Next, we have another graphic novel called Lights, which is part of the Sheets and Delicate series. I believe this is going to be the last one of this middle grade series, but Sheets was one of the very first graphic novels I'd ever read, and I adore the art style. I love kind of the dreary, sad kind of vibes of this book, and I'm just really excited to read the last installment. So if you guys haven't picked up this series, definitely do so. I have no idea the storyline of the third one, but I'm honestly just excited to have another one of these in my hands because the artwork is just absolutely stunning. Next we have Black Sheep by Rachel Harrison. I feel like there are a lot of authors that I love coming out with new books this year, and Rachel Harrison Harrison easily became like a new favorite author for me, even though I literally have only read Cackle, which I read last year and absolutely fell in love with. Her books are kind of like cozy horror in a way, because again, I'm not huge into full-out horror, but she writes more literary, eerie type of books that make you feel kind of uncomfortable. And this book's overarching theme is there's always a black sheep of each family. The only thing I know about it is our main character, I think, gets an invitation to a wedding and she cannot decide if she wants to go back into a toxic family relationship situation. And so I don't know what happens from there, but knowing Rachel Harrison, it's going to take an interesting turn. And I love the theme, love the cover, love the title. I think this is just going to be another great one. I'm usually not one for anthologies or short stories, but there is one coming out called In These Hollowed Halls, where all of the stories are dark academia themed. I don't think I've read anything from any of these authors, but there is Olivia Blake, there's JT Ellison, ML Rio, and I feel like that's just a really solid lineup for authors for this book. So I may end up getting this one from the library or waiting to see some reviews before I purchase it, but it looks like a lot of these are very chilling and compulsive and dark and dreary. I mean, it's dark academia and I'm not really sure if I'm a dark academia girl. I feel like I'm definitely more like cozy vibes during the fall, but I'm definitely willing to keep an eye on this one to see what people are thinking. Next, we have another auto by author for me, which is Maureen Kilmer. She's coming out with Hex Education. I read Suburban Hell last year, gave it 4.5 stars. I thought it was the funniest thing ever. It reminded me a little bit of My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. A former coven reunites to stop their lives from going up in flames. This sounds like it's going to be a very chaotic but funny ride. I think we're all really going to love this one if you just like an easy breezy laugh out loud kind of story. Next, I have one that's very highly anticipated for me. I actually haven't read anything by this author, but I do know that they wrote The Wolf and the Woodsman and Juniper and Thorn. Effie Sayre has always believed in fairy tales. She's had no choice. Since childhood, she's been haunted by visions of the Fairy King. She's found solace only in the pages of Angharad, author Emery Meredin's beloved epic about a mortal girl who falls in love with the Fairy King and then destroys him. This one sounds like it's just going to be another great gothic kind of mysterious young adult fantasy book that I'm just going to fall in absolute love with. It sounds like it could also go the paranormal route, especially from the cover. It looks super creepy, but it's also really intriguing, so very excited to see what this one's about. Next, we have The Unfortunate Side Effects of Heartbreak and Magic by Brienne Randall. Never heard of this author. I don't even care. The title and cover look amazing, but what really sold me is for fans of Practical Magic and Gilmore Girls. What more could you want? There's also tags that say paranormal, cozy mystery, romance, witches, fantasy. I mean, it just sounds amazing. I honestly don't need to know anything else about this book. Next, we have the long-awaited The Scarlet Veil by Shelby Mahurin. I believe this is her young adult, not adult, start of a new series. I love Serpent and Dove. I didn't love the second book, didn't continue on to the third, but I love the way that she writes romance, and yes, this one is a vampire story, which I'm extra excited about because I feel like she can just write those gothic, dreary, spooky vibes so well. If you guys have not checked out her Instagram, you need to because it is such a vibe. But she is such an amazing person. I've met her before and I basically will just read anything that she writes, so I'm super looking forward to finally getting to read another Shelby Mahurin book. Next, I have another witchy spooky book called The Witches of Bone Hill. I've never heard of this author before, but it's already giving me Practical Magic vibes. Cordelia Bone's meticulously crafted life and career in Dallas are crashing down around her thanks to her philandering husband with criminal debts. When her older carefree sister Eustace calls to inform her the great aunt they never met has died and they must travel to a small town in Connecticut to deal with the estate, she sees an opportunity to unload the house and save herself. But once there, the sisters learn they are getting much more than they bargained for. The Victorian mansion they stand to inherit is bound in a dynasty trust controlled by their late aunt's aging attorney, who insists they inhabit the house and retain it, but keeps them in the dark about the peculiar rituals of their ancestors. Not to mention a sexy tattooed groundskeeper with a shrouded past who refuses to leave the carriage house and a crypt full of dead relatives looming at the property line. That just sounds like a very chaotic, interesting, quirky group of characters. So I'm not really sure which direction this is gonna end up taking, but it just says it's Halloween, paranormal, adult fantasy with witches. I think it's just gonna be incredible. But I also love the cover, so this may end up just being a cover buy for me. Next we have What Became of Magic by Paige Crutcher. I believe this author also wrote The Lost Witch and The Orphan Witch. This one is a new tale about a witch, a book of magic, and a beguiling and powerful creature whom she must free, even if it puts her life and soul at stake. Apparently our main character is a witch. She can talk to ghosts, but she keeps her talents hidden ever since a disastrous middle school slumber party. If it's witchy and it's coming out near the fall, I'm more than likely going to get it. And if you guys have read anything by this author before, please let me know, because I haven't really heard much about it. Next, we have a book that is probably going to be solely a cover buy for me, and if the story lives up to the cover, that's even better, but it's After the Forest by Kell Woods. I think this is a debut. I've literally never seen this author, but this cover is so enchanting, but also kind of eerie to me. It's an adult sci-fi fantasy, but it's based off a retelling. It says an enchanting fantasy that explores the repercussions of a childhood filled with magic and a young woman contending with the truth of happily ever after. Because I'm seeing the names Greta and Hans, I'm assuming that's based off the classic story, so I'm really excited for this one. Oh, the cover and the fact that this is adult. It says a house, a witch, an oven, fiery hot. So, oh, this is just gonna be so incredible for fall. The last book I wanted to talk about, which is a graphic novel before we get into a couple Christmas books, is Nell of Gumbling, My Extremely Normal Fairy Tale Life. The reason this caught my attention is because it's by Emma Steinkellner, which also wrote the OK Witch series, which I thought was really good, especially for middle grade. It was a very detailed, kind of layered story, but it's about a 12-year-old girl living an ordinary life in a magical land. You might think that life in the town of Gumbling is like something out of a storybook, but to me it's just home. But it looks like she becomes an apprentice at a fancy resort. I'm just interested to see what else this author is going to come up with. I feel like she's just really great at writing magic into stories, and this one's a little bit more sci-fi fiction. A December to Remember by Jenny Bayliss sounds incredible, even though I've never read anything by this author. I know she's a pretty popular author around Christmas time, and this cover is absolutely adorable. It says 3 bickering half-sisters must come together to compete in a series of wacky challenges to access their inheritance in a winsome holiday story. It sounds like it's gonna be pretty humorous as well. This one is probably gonna be pretty high on my priority list going into the holiday season. Next, we have Love Holly by Emily Stone. This author knocks it out of the park every single time, I swear, with her covers. Seriously, so good. This has to be the year I finally read a book by this author. Ever since a car accident tore her family apart, Holly has been part of a Lonely Hearts holiday letter writing club. Each December, she writes to a stranger who's also spending Christmas alone and receives a letter from another lonely person in return. Usually, the letters go unanswered. That's the point. The letters are anonymous and the senders write whatever is in their heart. But this year, the letter Holly receives is different. Not only is the letter full of a grief she knows all too well, but its writer, Emma, mentions a place that Holly has visited. When she realizes that she might actually be able to find the letter's author, Holly becomes determined to reunite Emma with the estranged grandson Jack, with whom Emma is desperate to reconnect. When Holly finally tracks him down, she remembers that she's met Jack once before, and the connection was electric. The spark between the two of them is still there until a misunderstanding risks their romance and his strained relationship with Emma too. But Holly is determined. If she can fix Emma's family, she might also be able to fix her own. Though as it turns out, Holly might have less time to put things right than she thought. Last but not least, I have a new book by Mary Kay Andrews called Bright Lights Big Christmas. I love the little RV or trailer that's on this cover. It looks adorable, but our main character is coming back to her hometown or flying to, I believe, her brother's Christmas tree farm that's kind of going under. I don't know what else happens. It sounds like a cute little small town romance, obviously. I really loved the Santa suit by this author though, which is why I want to pick up another one of her Christmas books. It was really short, it was really sweet, and it wasn't too cheesy, which is what I appreciate in a good Christmas book. Alright friends, I hope you enjoyed this video. There's definitely a lot of exciting books coming out, and I cannot believe I'm talking about Christmas books in the month of July, but I'm so glad that we have some good stuff to look forward to, especially some really great fantasy books. I've been reading a lot of romance and thrillers this summer, but I can definitely tell in the fall I'm going to be getting a lot more into just fantasy again, so I'm super hyped to have some good ones to look forward to. Let me know if there's any that I missed on this list or any that you guys think I would like that I should add to my list. There's nothing like going in the bookstore on new release day and picking up a brand new book. So I'm very excited for this fall and the rest of the summer. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys found it to be helpful. Thank you so much for watching and supporting my channel. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in my next video.